Hey guys, it's Fee from UG Up Close. In 5 minutes or less, we open up conversation and questions on topics that we tend to overlook here at church. Today I have Angie. Again, we couldn't afford Oprah, so today we're talking about sexual harassment and abuse, and let's get into it. So when you think of harassment or abuse, what do you think of?
I think it's really sad to think that that's something that they have to go through, or that it's something that happens a lot and that we're not really aware of.
I feel like it happens more than we know. Like, it's not just something that happens and everyone, like, the girl just feels comfortable, or the guy, they feel comfortable, like, reporting it, and the right thing happens, like, the person who did whatever, like, they go to jail. Like, it's not this perfect thing that we tend to, like, want to say that it is.
And I think something that's also really hard, though, is that sometimes when people choose to talk about it, nothing still really happens.
Yeah, I think...
Or it doesn't go the way they thought it might have.
I think some people don't really take it seriously unless it's something as, like...
But that sucks, because...
big as rape, and then after that it's way too late, and you can't really, you can't go back and, like, change things, so...
Yeah, I was gonna say, but that's what sucks, though, because it's like, even though it's something that's so little, like, the moment that you feel unsure or uncomfortable about something, then you should know no matter what that's not okay.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't think, like, oh, maybe, even if, like, you tell someone and they're just like, it's really not a big deal. Maybe not to them, but to you, yes. So you have to trust yourself in knowing that if that wasn't right, that you should address it.
Yeah, like, I know, like, with me personally, I was in a situation where, like, a couple of friends and I were at this party, and this guy decided that, like, he was into me, and I didn't feel the same way. So, like, there were parts of the night where, like, he would come up to me and, like, be really touchy, really flirty, and it was really obvious that he wanted to do things that I didn't. So I remember, like, I finally had a chance alone with one of my friends, and I was like, hey, this guy is, like, he's kind of shady. Like, I don't want to be by myself. Like, I don't want to be alone. And I remember they just kind of shrugged it off. It's, oh, he's not going to do anything. Like, it's fine. Like, nothing's going to happen. But, like, I was really scared because, it's like, I don't feel okay, though. So, like, like, help me out kind of thing.
You saying that kind of reminds me of a time where I went through something, and I had told someone about it, and they kind of just told me, are you sure that's how it was? And I remember it was, like, really hard to talk about it at first, but, like, they kept asking me what exactly was it that happened. Like, they wanted to make sure, which I think is good, that they want to make sure that you're aware of everything that happened. But it's also, like, it's hard to talk about, but it is, like, it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
And just get it out and know that you have someone to talk to about it.
I think another thing that's, like, really important to point out is that, like, when people say, like, oh, you should be flattered, like, he like, gave you attention or whatever, like, that really bothers me. Like, when it's just like, oh, well, like, it's this guy, so, like, he never gives attention to anyone, like, you should, that's a good thing, kind of. It's like, I didn't like it, it's not a good thing.
Wait,
period. Like, that's the end of it.
One of my cousins, she told me that she was at school and they were cheering for a basketball game, and a guy was there, and he wasn't from their school, and he kept looking at her, and she says that the looks he was giving her, she was just really uncomfortable. And the next day that she went to school, somebody told her, hey, I have to tell you something. And she was like, what is it? And, like, do you remember this guy? Like, he said he kept looking at you, and that you were giving him this look so that he thought, like, you wanted him and all this, and that you were, like, so pretty, and that all this stuff. Like, he said some inappropriate things, and I remember she told me about it, and she was like, I don't know why, but when he said that, like, I just felt so disgusted, and violated. So it's just like, even to think how someone's words could even, have that kind of impact on somebody just by saying that. But yeah, so in that I told her like yeah, that's rough. And then she told me that her friend had told her, oh, but he was saying like all this good stuff about you, so you shouldn't feel weird. And she told me like, I couldn't believe that they said that to me. And I told her, well, yeah, to them it's not really a big deal, but just know like if you felt uncomfortable, like that's fine. Like it makes sense why you would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like, I don't know.
Why do you think people don't really talk about it that much?
Okay, yeah. So I think it kind of just depends on the person. Some people, they might feel awkward, or honestly, it's just they just feel uncomfortable. And it's kind of hard whenever something that's happened to you for you to have to talk about that, because in a way it's like you have to relive it. And I mean, if you go through something like that, you don't want to relive it. Like just the thought of it must make you feel so weird, or it might have you doubt yourself. Like, what if I did something that kind of gave off that vibe,
I think also it's because like we tend to, like how you said, like kind of make it our fault, or like, like if you're in that situation, you kind of think like, what did I do to provoke that,
That, or they just don't think anything's gonna happen. Like they're just like, oh, it happened, or they're just like, oh, that's just what happens. Like that's just what goes. Like it happens all the time. It's not really a big deal. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Like the environment that you grew up in.
Yeah.
So let's say that maybe you had a friend and she had a boyfriend who kind of was like really touchy or whatever, and she kind of would tell you about it, but you were just like, oh, so that's kind of how a boyfriend and a girlfriend are. Like they're like this and that. And so when it comes to you then, and you have a relationship, it could be like your first boyfriend or even like your second, and you don't really know how it should be or what it is that's okay and what's too far. But in reality, it's just what, like, you can't take it too far, because if you're not comfortable with that, then you just have to be like, oh, I'm not comfortable with that. Because in that moment, don't doubt yourself and be like, even though I'm uncomfortable with that, it must be okay because so many other people do it.
Yeah.
Or like, I hear about it all the time, like everybody does it, but just because other people do things, that doesn't mean it's okay, or that it's, what's the word I'm looking for?
Okay.
Supposed to happen? I don't know.
Like basically like what you're saying.
Like you shouldn't let it happen.
Yeah, like what's right versus what feels right. It's two different things. Yeah.
I feel like the reason why it's also uncomfortable though is because we grow up hearing that sex is a bad thing, or that being physical is a bad thing. And so in hearing that, you think in a way that you did something wrong because of what you've grown up listening to. Like, oh, if sex is bad but I was raped, then that means that I did something bad myself. And so that's why it can also be uncomfortable, because we don't really talk about that either.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, oh no, like you have to wait, and you can't be doing this with your boyfriend, you can't be doing that. And so they go and they do it and they hide it because they don't want people to know that about them. So then it's like they could be doing something thinking that it's normal, but then it goes too far. So then they think, well, if I tell them, then they're gonna have to know what I was originally doing. So they're ashamed of that because they grew up hearing that it was such a bad thing.